Today we are doing a PDO lifting treatment using VSoft lift threads. This patient has had a lifting treatment in the past. It was about 9 months ago now. So this is a maintenance treatment for her. So really we just want to continue lifting and stimulating that collagen so we can maintain this beautiful lift. So here I am just marking up. When I'm marking up, I have the patient sit completely straight up, like not even their back leaning against the back of the chair, because I really want to appreciate what it's going to look like when the patient is standing up and gravity is taking effect. Once the patient is laid back in position for treatment, it really displaces where that tissue is. So I really like to spend a good amount of time marking off like where I want to go in and assessing if this is where I'm going to get the best lift. Once she's laid back, as you can see, her tissue is now displaced from where my lines initially were. So really taking the time to mark them up and see where you're getting the best lift is going to be very important in getting the best results possible. Here we're going in with an 18 gauge needle and opening up our vectors. For her, we're doing 18 gauge threads, so you want to make sure your pilot hole is large enough to be able to navigate that cannula through the tissue. Here we are going in and opening up our vector and also just giving a little bit of anesthesia. This is 2% lidocaine I have drawn up in my syringe here, and I do a little less than 0.05 per vector, just to make sure that I'm not completely flooding the tissue with liquid. So you have to think the threads are barbed. So if you have way too much fluid sitting in that vector, it's just going to be floating in fluid and it's not going to engage in the tissue as well as it could. So of course I want my patient to be comfortable, but I'm also keeping that in mind as well. And throughout the treatment, I just kind of ask my patient how she's doing and making sure everything is feeling comfortable. And as you can see, she's talking and chatting with me. This really is not as of an intense treatment as it looks. I have a lot of patients who watch videos prior to coming into the office and they're, really nervous about this treatment. But once they get it, I always get the feedback that it's not as bad as they thought. But it definitely does look a little intimidating when you're, viewing it on social media. Now we're going in with our 18 gauge threads. So I already created that vector, so it should be relatively easy to slip into the depth that you've already created and just be able to advance that cannula forward. As I'm going through, you can kind of see here as I start this vector that I slide a little bit down through my vector and then lift and feel and make sure that I like my depth. A very common complication from lifting threads is seeing puckering of the tissue, and this is often from the provider not staying in the same tissue plane the entire way down the vector. So even here, I went ahead and popped a 3cc syringe on the end of my cannula and just trapped that thread in there so I was able to correct my depth right down at the bottom near her mouth. This is really important, so always double check. As long as your patient's comfortable, take the time to make sure that everything is smooth and you like your placement, because once you pull that cannula back, you cannot, once that thread is pulled back, it starts to engage, so you will not be able to remove it. So always just take the time, ensure that you like your depth, everything is smooth, and this is what is going to get your patient the best result. So you can kind of see there, every so often I'm just lifting up on my cannula and just ensuring that I like the depth. And then here, right in the middle there, I decided that I wanted to be a little bit deeper. So again, I'm going ahead and placing my 3cc syringe on the end just to trap that thread. Once you start pulling back on those barbs, they do engage and your thread will get stuck. So please ensure that you have something on the end there prior to correcting your depth here. But now I'm just going back in and I'm just going in a downwards direction to make sure that I'm going slightly deeper. And now I like this so much better. And I know that my patient is going to have a nice smooth result and not see any puckering there. So just going ahead and pulling back. I'm just cleaning around the pilot hole. I do my best to keep the hair out. Of course, we're always wanting to prevent against infection. So I have a headband on there. But sometimes their little baby hairs tend to be right in the way of where I want my pilot hole to be. So I just ensure that I'm not touching my cannula to the hair and I'm cleaning that pilot hole as well. So here I am just snipping off the ends here and then going ahead and doing one final wipe right over that pilot hole. Here I am spreading out my barbs, just making sure everything is engaged. You'll feel a couple little pops. I like to tell patients they're called zingers because it's really not painful. You just feel that thread popping into place. So sometimes they can feel those pops for the next few days after treatment as well. If they're opening their mouth really wide and things like that, that is completely normal. It's just that thread settling and the barbs engaging. So here I am just again ensuring that everything is as smooth as possible. Anything that I see that needs to be engaged, I will do that prior to them leaving. And then sometimes, like I said, just due to swelling and things, they don't all engage. And just as that tissue heals and naturally settles, everything pops into place. So now I'm going in and doing my jawline, and we're going to follow that same exact pattern that I did for the 3 vector, just starting off with my 18 gauge needle and then going in with my cannula to create my vectors. Like I said, this patient wanted to focus on her jawline, so we are doing 2 threads here for her. Doing the jowl thread also helps as well, lift that tissue up, again, fighting against that gravity there. But here I am just creating my 2 vectors and using the 2% lidocaine. Again, I don't like to push more than 0.5, just so that thread isn't sitting in a pool of fluid. I want it to engage as best as possible in order to get a good lift while still ensuring my patient is comfortable. So again, just going ahead and placing my lidocaine and going in with my threads. These are 18 gauge by 100 millimeter threads. I can't remember if I said that in the beginning. Another thing to ensure when you're placing lifting threads is either to go completely past that area of animation or stop slightly before. So in her case, for her nasolabial fold, I stopped before it, and here I'm going all the way past her marionette. This is just to ensure when the patient is smiling and talking that you're not able to see any portion of the thread. Same process here. I give it a little tug, nothing crazy. I just want to feel that they are completely engaged, and then I go ahead and snip off my excess there. And truly, she doesn't have too much swelling here. Like I said, she's had this treatment before, so she kind of knows the healing process that she is about to have. But we're going to go ahead and pop a Band-Aid on, and we will see her back in about 3 weeks when the swelling is gone.